Today I want to talk about animal welfare in Islam and the production and consumption of what is called halal meat in the UK. So I'm going to start by reading some chapters from the Holy Quran. Chapter 6, verse 38 of the Holy Quran says, "And there is no animal in the earth, nor a bird that flies on its two wings, but they are communities like yourselves. We have not neglected anything in the book, then to their Lord they will be gathered." Chapter 24, verse 41 says, "Do you not see that Allah is He whom do glorify all those who are in the heavens and the earth, and the birds with wings outspread? Each one knows its prayer and its glorification, and Allah is knower of what they do." Chapter 29, verse 60. "And how many a living creature carries not its sustenance? Allah sustains it and yourselves, and He is the hearing, the knowing." And finally, chapter 55, verse 10. "And the earth, He has set it for His creatures." Recently, halal and kosher meat was banned in Denmark, and one of their ministers commented that animal rights come before religion. The level of ignorance in this comment was compounded even further when in Denmark a healthy giraffe was deemed surplus to requirements by a zoo and killed and decapitated in front of thousands of children and then fed to the lions. This despite two wildlife parks who had offered to house him, and an offer of over £400,000 from a benefactor to contribute to the costs of looking after the giraffe. The Danish zoo called it euthanasia. I would call it a callous murder of a defenseless animal whose right was taken away because they already had enough giraffes. And only a few days ago, more news emerged that the same Danish zoo killed 4 lions, 2 adults and 2 pups. Animal rights come before religion in Denmark, but apparently animal rights are less important than population control. And even if you accept the argument about gene pool control that's been put forward, you can't accept the way that these animals were killed for entertainment of human beings. The verses I read out at the beginning clearly show that the Danish minister was wrong in his assertion that animals have no rights in Islam. The Holy Quran describes animals as communities, just like humans, and tells us that animals have feelings and connections to the spiritual and the physical world, and that we must consider their lives as worthwhile and cherish them. And we also have a duty to make sure that animals are sustained and none are left to starve or die out as a species. The Holy Quran makes it clear that animals are a creation of Allah and must be treated with respect and kindness and never killed unless specifically for food. And even then, the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, shows that this must be in absolute moderation. The Holy Quran has made it extremely clear how we should treat animals, and those who mistreat them will have to answer for their crimes to Allah. But if anyone is still in doubt, there are further concrete examples we can take from various hadiths. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, said that a good deed done to an animal is like a good deed done to a human being, while an act of cruelty to an animal is as bad as cruelty to human beings. He admonished his companions when they found a bird's nest and took the young birds away from their mother. On finding out, he said, "Who has hurt the feelings of this bird by taking its young? Return them to her." He once saw a woman who was known to be a prostitute who risked her own life by running barefoot on the scorching desert sand to get to a well to fill her shoes with water and bring it back to save a dying dog. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, pointed to the woman and said there was a place in heaven for her. On the other side of the coin, he condemned a woman who had died after it was found out that she had kept a cat captive and did not feed it, and it died imprisoned in her home. And he said that she would go to hell for her crimes. Hunting for sport was completely banned. He cursed those who'd used any living creature as a target. He also banned any sports which involved the breeding of animals to fight each other. He gave orders that when an animal was to be killed for its meat, that it would be taken away from other animals so that they would not have to see it, and that the knife used was to be sharpened elsewhere and not to be seen by the animal, because the absolute minimum distress should be caused to the creature. So, a host of examples that provide clear evidence that if we follow the example of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, then we must be kind to animals. And beyond that, we must make sure that we help animals who are in distress. Under this Islamic system, there would be no fox hunting. There would be no horse racing or greyhound racing. These would be banned. There would be no dog fighting, dog rodeos or cockfighting. These would be banned. There'd be no bullfighting or hunting or fishing for sport. These would be banned. There would be no shooting of game birds as live targets for sport. That would be banned. There would be no snaring. Snares are thin wire hitches used to catch and choke animals, any animals, which are perceived to be a pest or a threat. The snare garrots its victim and can lead to extreme pain and suffering, or cause the animal to die instantly. They're used mostly by gamekeepers to catch foxes and rabbits, but they also end up killing badgers and otters and livestock and even domestic pets who accidentally get caught up in them. This disgusting practice is legal in the United Kingdom, but it will be banned in Islam. All of these things happen right now across the world. Humans abusing animals on a daily basis, and only Islam gives strict, direct instructions on how to treat every living creature, every creation of Allah. Now, Islam permits us to eat certain meat, but it does that by adding several guidelines which must be followed to minimize the suffering of the animals. But still, the Danish government has banned halal meat, and the British Veterinary Association said that religious slaughter methods need to be changed to prevent animal suffering. Zabiyah is a word which most people don't know. They haven't heard it before. But to Muslims, it's synonymous with our religious mandate to care for animals. It's the name given for the humane method of slaughter for animals for food. The method quickly dispatches the animal by severing the structures at the front of the neck, the trachea, the gullet, the carotid arteries, and the jugular veins. Now, when this is performed properly by a trained person, the speed and precision of the incision means that there is an immediate loss of consciousness to the animal, and blood flow to the brain is halted. The blood in the brain then empties very, very quickly. There is no delay between stun and subsequent death, so the animal cannot regain consciousness. as can happen with conventional methods used in the West. Traditional Western methods of stunning by using a captive bolt or gassing or electrocution, these all paralyze the animal and it is unable to display outward signs of feeling any pain. But it is absolutely impossible to know whether the animal is actually feeling any pain or not. Research in 1994 at the Colorado State University in America found that religious slaughter is at least as humane as newer mechanical methods, and there is no scientific consensus that religious slaughter is cruel to animals. But still, these groups and governments want to ban halal meat, all the while ignoring the abuse to animals slaughtered in the conventional way. Animal Aid secretly filmed between 2009 and 2011 in slaughterhouses and found evidence of unspeakable cruelty and illegal activity in 8 of the 9 randomly chosen slaughterhouses. Animals were kicked, they were slapped, stamped on, and in some cases even burnt with cigarettes simply for the amusement of the men and women that worked there. I would suggest that these things are investigated and those people responsible removed from this industry, rather than focusing on the tiny minority of halal meat. But don't be fooled into thinking that most meat sold in the UK advertised as halal actually is. When you go to a butcher and you buy your baby chicken for £2 or £3, you'll most likely be buying a chicken which was born and raised on a battery farm. These are basically large rooms filled with cages which are so small that the chickens cannot move, cannot spread their wings, and they can't even lie down. Additionally, chickens in the past have been injected with protein so that they retain water and look plumper and bigger. And these proteins were found to contain both beef and pork and were being sold as halal chicken. Just because a man says Bismillah and Allahu Akbar when slaughtering the chicken, this does not make it halal. What makes the meat halal is that the animal is treated with kindness and respect throughout its life. And it is not just the last 2 seconds of the animal's life that matters. As Muslims, we have cultivated this fake halal industry by demanding meat at the cheapest possible price. And it's not possible, it seems, to make sure the welfare of the animals is paramount at those prices. But obviously, it's not just Muslims. The demand for cheap meat from everyone has caused the whole industry to mistreat animals. And that is why we hear about scandals like the recent horse meat one or the injecting of proteins, as I mentioned before. It's not unusual. It's not some small cases. This is regular throughout the history of this industry that scandals have emerged. There are other options for Muslims though. There are organic farms now in the UK where the animals are treated as Allah and the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, have instructed. And the slaughter of these animals is carefully controlled and not done on a mass scale where mistakes can be made. But the reality of that is that we have to pay more for this meat. These farms charge 2 or 3 times more than your local so-called halal butcher. But we must accept this and we must pay more and shun those companies which do not conform to the guidance which has been given to us. Those companies are in the halal meat business for profiteering and for greed, and not to supply meat in a manner that the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, ascribed for us. If your argument is that you cannot afford to buy the expensive meat, then I would suggest that you simply eat less meat. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, ate so little meat that he could almost be described as a vegetarian. Sister Habiba gave an excellent speech last year on this very topic, and I'll add a link to that in the description when this video is uploaded to the internet. As Muslims, if we're to live by the sunnah of the Holy Prophet, then we should be eating a lot less meat than we currently do. The last statistics I saw was that Muslims consume 20% of all the meat in the UK. Considering that Muslims only make up approximately 2% of the population, that is a staggering amount of meat. Despite all the facts that I've presented here, and this is only some of the information which is available, I've no doubt that Muslims in Denmark, and I've no doubt that Muslims in Denmark have said exactly the same thing as I'm standing here saying. This will not help overturn the ban that has been put in place by the government there and could potentially be put in place by governments around the world. As Muslims, all we can do is make sure we follow the guidance of Allah and the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and treat all animals with kindness and love, just like we would our own children. And let our example be the proof of the right way to live life.